English translation 200 First Contact. Wednesday, 5th of June 1985, 0018 hours.
So, my friend, today I would like to ask you about what is actually up with the Destroyer. In the past, you once said that you would strive to remove this wandering planet from the Sol system, but that you must be entitled or mandated to do so by the High Council and by the Arahat Athersata level, because it concerns a major intervention in cosmic events. Is this still valid?
Yes, but the whole thing might still drag on for another 10-15 years. Also in terms of the technical possibilities that we must still acquire in order to be able to carry out such an enterprise.
If you should actually be ordered to do so, and if you can carry out the enterprise, what happens then with the prophecies that are given in connection with the Destroyer, as well as with the Earth, Mars and its moons, and with the Sun, etc.? These would then have to fall flat, nevertheless, because completely different and new prerequisites would emerge.
That is of correctness.
If the Destroyer should disappear from our system, then entirely different events would arise in relation to the destruction of the Earth and the passing of the Sun and so on.
I already said that this is of correctness. If the changes of the Sun and the planets result without the influence of the Destroyer, then in about 380 million years, the Sun will already be incorporated into processes through which an excessive activity will emerge, by what means all life on Earth will slowly start to become extinct, and in about 470 million years, no floral, faunal, and human life forms can exist on the planet anymore. In about 4,000,000,000 years, the Sun will only exist as a dead, respectively shrunken, dark, and inactive star, along with some inactive planets, which will still float, together with their burned-out sun, through free space for around 6,006,000,000 years, and, thus, a total of about 10,010,000,000 years after the denaturing of the Earth, in order, then, to be pulled in by a black hole and be compressed by its heavy mass.
However, the earthly scientists do not proceed from this data that you just mentioned. They say that the Earth will still exist for 5 to 10 billion, 5,000,000,000 to 10,000,000,000 years, and will probably still carry life until then.
That is known to me, but they have no knowledge about the fact that the greenhouse gas, CO2, plays a very important role for the Earth, and that if the sun irradiation becomes too strong, which will be the case at the time mentioned by me, then the CO2 rapidly disappears. However, this stands in very important connection with the sun's irradiation, because if the radiation becomes too strong through the penetrating heat, then the moisture-bearing clouds evaporate, as well as the waters of the streams, rivers, lakes, and seas, whereby the greenhouse gas ultimately becomes removed from the atmosphere. This means, however, that an automatic cooling takes place. But this cooling will only be of a relatively short duration, because the increasing radiation of the sun, which slowly starts to swell, slowly dries up the planet completely when all the liquid has evaporated, after which the Earth's surface then starts to glow, and the soil as well as the rocks of the mountains become liquefied. The time for this will be when the sun is a red giant, and liquefies the inner planets and pulls them into itself.
But all life on Earth, so I suppose, will already no longer exist for a long time prior to this process, except thermal bacterial life, right?
That is of correctness.
Good. Then still another question. On my great journey, I saw a very fine ring around Jupiter, similar to Saturn's ring, which was so fine nevertheless that it cannot be detected, respectively cannot be seen, from the Earth. The question now is this: whether it can now be seen and photographed nevertheless with the large telescope that is supposed to be brought in about 5 years into an orbit around the Earth.
You mean the Hubble Space Telescope, as it will be called. No, an observation will hardly be possible up to then because this Jupiter ring already stands in dissolution and might already be gone in less than a year.
Oh, I see. But now it interests me as to how this ring formed. Also the others around Saturn, etc. Can you tell me something about that? Particularly, I am interested in Saturn's ring, which has such beautiful, reddish, and partly deep red colors that alternate in the different ring layers.
All rings of the SOL system's planets trace back to comets, as well as to their tails. With Saturn, these came from a number of comets that left behind fragments and tail matter around the planet and, as also with Uranus, accordingly produced a visible ring that is divided into different layers and a number of other smaller rings, and also exhibits different colors, as you have already said, whereby light to very strong red coloring particularly stands out.
And why is Jupiter's ring so weak?
With this planet, only a single and small comet had an effect, therefore, only a very small ring formation developed, but which will soon be dissolved, as I already said.
And when was Jupiter's ring formed then?
It is still very young. The exact date when it originated is unknown to me.
So then, still another question. The planet Phaeton, respectively Malona, was, at an earlier time, where Mars now draws its course. Did the life zone still extend out to this planet?
That corresponds to the truth. The life zone, as you call it, still reached out, about 1,000,000,000 years ago, to the former location of Mars, so to roughly 400 million kilometers. Then, about 75,000 years ago, at the time of the destruction of Phaeton Malona, the Sun developed a sudden high level of activity, whereby much more solar energy was released into the vastness of universal space in the area of the Sol system, which unleashed a tremendously strong evaporation on the planet Mars, which had fallen to its present orbit. All CO2 settled down into the ground, whereby the planet practically died of thirst and became a red and black dry desert. In the same vein, the phenomenon occurred that the life zone mentioned by you shrank within a few months, and only the Earth still remained in this. In 380 million years, however, the Earth will also slowly slip out of the life zone, and in 470 million years, the greenhouse gas CO2 will be so reduced through the increased energy of the Sun, respectively through the evaporation of water, that nothing can exist anymore because all plants will have passed and no more oxygen will be able to be produced.
And where does the CO2 disappear then?
I explained, nevertheless, that it will settle itself into the ground.
Ah, so you mean that it will, so to speak, deposit itself into the soil.
That is of correctness. But now I should go again.
Still one or two questions, please.
But then it must be enough.
So be it. Can you tell me whether you know how many Earth-like and thus habitable planets there are in our galaxy, and when foreign planets will finally be discovered by our astronomers?
The number of Earth-like planets in this galaxy is unknown to us, but we have estimates that amount to an acceptance of around 49 million, and also, in accordance with our estimates, about 7 million of these planets carry life. Your question, then, terrestrial scientists, to whom I also count amateur astronomers, will already discover the first Earth-foreign planets in a few years, after which, around the turn of the millennium, already a substantial number will be registered. But there will be no planets among them that are capable of carrying higher life.
Then still one last question. If in accordance with your statements, the Soviet Union and the GDR, East Germany, can seal their end in the next years and the communist government disappears, Then the Cold War will finally end there, and there will be peace, and also the bombs and the rockets and the like will be destroyed.
The Great Cold War will seem to find an end in an official form, but secretly it will continue. Thus, the show will be deceiving, and real peace will be as distant as ever. Bombs and rockets will likely be destroyed to a certain amount, namely through corresponding disarmament treaties that will be agreed upon and signed between America and the Soviet Union, respectively, Russia. Yet everything will be nothing more than a show because, in truth, only outdated weapon systems and thus useless scrap will be dismantled and destroyed and will be replaced by new, modern systems. Thus, everything will be nothing more than a deception toward humanity, while the major players renew their weapon systems in a confidential manner.
Typical. Thanks for your remarks. Then I do not want to delay you now any longer. Take care then, and greet everyone quite dearly for me.
I will do that. Goodbye.